good evening, and welcome to the Freek Easy spin-off podcast to the very best Geek Easy podcast, a podcast of great proportion. Tonight, we are discussing a film of immense...
You have to do it the whole time. Do it the entire time. Don't stop.
Sorry. Excuse me, Jonathan.
I control it too. You said film.
Tonight, we are discussing a film of great import and historical... Oh, I lost the word. All right, out of it. Guys, welcome back to the Freek Easy.
And all those other movies.
It's got to be the worst. It's got to be the worst Alfred Hitchcock.
I saved it.
Okay.
You nailed it. Well, he didn't do 2, 3, or 4. I should point out.
I think it's pretty clear.
Oh man, guys, I'm juiced.
Yeah, man.
Did you do all your homework?
I did all my homework.
Did you do all your homework?
I didn't know there was homework.
Guys, welcome back to the Freek Easy. I am your host, Scaren Jaren. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Phantom Dan.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And our guest star, Jonathan Leonard.
Hey, I'll take guest star.
Guest star.
Yeah. So I get the little "and" before my name.
Yeah,
nice.
Featuring. Featuring.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Jonathan.
I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
Tonight we are talking Psycho, the grandfather, the original slasher. Mm-hmm. Man, it's so good. Hitchcock, baby. It's one of this is one of the Psycho. I'm just gonna jump right in.
We should. Let's just jump
Psycho
right in.
is one of the films. It's one of the it's transcended the horror genre. You know what I mean? Like not only did it kind of start the slasher thing, mm-hmm. but then it is respected as one of the great movies of all time. You know, nothing else. None of the other, horror movies. As much as you love horror or anything,
right.
None of the rest of them are respected as this great movie.
And you know what? It's totally clear when you're watching it.
Oh,
you get that while you're watching this.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to downplay it when you were starting off because you were saying something like the worst Hitchcock or whatever.
The worst Hitchcock?
That's what I thought.
No.
I heard. So
I don't think you did, but
I
would definitely say not the worst.
Yeah, no, definitely
we'll play it back.
Yeah.
So. Well, because I immediately started going, no, it's great. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of Hitchcock, though. They're all pretty good, but this can't be the worst, can it? But
no, it's great.
No, this movie's great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and I will say this, since we're diving right into this right now, If you listen to the show, you know we're going to get into spoilers. But if you're somebody who's stumbling upon this for the first time and listening to it, we are going to get into spoilers. And if you have never seen Psycho before, I am urging you right now to just pause this podcast, watch that movie, because you don't need to be listening to all of this discussion before you experience this movie for the first time.
Yep.
So go watch that movie and then come back.
Especially if somehow it hasn't been spoiled before you threw pop culture somehow, because that's a ticking time bomb. Go take care of it.
Yeah, if you know nothing about Psycho and you've never seen it, please go watch it before you listen to this.
So I was listening to one of the podcasts. There's a horror podcast. They were talking about Psycho, and actually,
there's other horror podcasts.
Yeah,
we were the first ones that thought of it.
I thought so. I thought this was the only one. I thought we were trailblazing. What am I even doing here?
Well, they were interviewing a guy who had made one of a documentary on Psycho, and he had been working with. He walked into a bank wearing a shirt that had the mother silhouette on it. Mm-hmm. And the bank teller was some young girl, and she was like, "Oh, the Bates Motel." So she knew from that show that is on A&E.
Yeah.
And he spoiled he was like, "Well, actually, it's or he said something about it's not mother." And she had no clue what he was talking. You know what I mean?
Oh wow!
So even if people are what I'm coming around to, even if people are a fan of Bates Motel, not all of them have seen Psycho, and go watch
crazy.
Psycho.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Do we know anything? I don't want to veer off too much because Bates Motel isn't the subject of our show today, but do we know a lot about that show?
Not really.
Is it a slasher style show, or is it just some weird drama thing, or
so I don't know. I didn't watch it. So I thought I was gonna watch it. I thought it was only like 1 or 2 seasons. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go check it out. We're watching The Psychos. We're going to talk about them. I'm going to go watch Bates Motel. I got some free time. And it's like 5 seasons long.
Yeah,
it's
5 seasons.
I was like, oh, well,
it's 10 episodes a season.
Yeah,
so
I can't
50
get through
episodes.
that in time.
Yeah, you'll have to watch. Because I did the same thing. Like, I started looking at it after watching those movies because I'm curious now. So I did kind of do the thing where I was like just flipping through and like reading about each of the episodes, like the synopsis for each episode, trying to kind of piece together get a feel for what's going on, and it didn't really like help me at all. So I think I am going to check it out at some point just because I want to know.
Yeah. I was gonna say, in fairness to the people who are writing those synopsises, though, good for them, because I always hate it when you read a synopsis for a show and you're like, oh, I don't have to watch this episode now.
Yeah, totally true.
So I also did not read the book by Robert Bloch, which is
the novelization of the film Psycho.
Well, it's actually it's the novel that the film was based on.
Apparently,
it doesn't share much. I mean, it created Norman Bates and the mother character and everything, but it's a very different book that was written after the guy learned about Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I read that it was that.
Yeah.
Norman Bates is inspired by Ed Gein. Yeah.
Aren't a bunch of isn't he the one that like several horror movies have inspired?
Yeah.
By?
So Norman Bates, he inspired Leatherface.
I thought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I've heard that before too.
And Buffalo Bill in the Sun.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Those are the main ones. I don't know.
You don't really need more than that.
Oh well, yeah.
It's 3 pretty iconic characters.
Right, for sure.
Good job, Ed Gein. Yeah. Well done. Glad you were around.
Right. Way to be the most famous serial killer, most famous for not being a serial killer. Wait, you know what I mean?
Yeah, good enough.
All right, guys. So I always like to start off just kind of like our memories of any of this. Mm-hmm. I know Psycho was one of the my mom showed me Psycho, and I know the first time I would have seen it.
Sounds healthy.
Well, I know. That's fair. I know the first time I would have seen it, I was not able to comprehend. This is a great movie. I mean, I enjoyed it, and it was like a slasher. It was like a scary movie. I didn't always get to watch.
It was great for you because you're young and you think you're not supposed to be watching it,
yes.
but also your mom is letting you, and this is awesome, and this is fun, and what a great movie.
Right.
Not like, well, this is artistically a fantastic film. Yeah.
So she has also always used these movies against me because I believe that. She's a staunch believer that media affects society, and I'm pretty staunch believer that media is a reflection of society.
Can't it be both?
Absolutely. I mean that's what our conversations always come to, but we lean opposite directions. But she always uses these movies against me because she says we went to see Psycho 2 on the drive-in. And there's a scene in that, and we'll talk more about the movie itself, but there's a scene in that where Norman hits his mother with a shovel, and she always says that the next day
I had
a plastic toy shovel that I hit her with the next day. And I don't ever want to call my mom a liar. And probably that happened.
Yeah.
Did you at least make her some first? Offer her some sandwiches.
Man,
it's hilarious how close that is to the joke I almost made, because when you were like, she says she uses it against me, I was going to say, does she just scream, what are you going to do, kill me again and start wearing my dresses? And you go, that was Norman Bates, Mom, not me.
Oh man.
So those are my main memories of Psycho. Do you guys have any memories?
Honestly, my first memory of Psycho in and of itself, outside of just knowing about it from pop culture, was probably 3 years ago. I did not see that. I've seen this movie before now, but it's very recently. Yeah. The first time I actually sat down and watched it.
So I'm the same.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of use this, and we've talked about this with a lot of these movies, but obviously this is one that has penetrated pop culture so thoroughly that a lot of people who have never seen this, they know the shower reference. They know the wee, wee, wee with the knife in the shower. They even know even the stuff with Mother, the conversation with Mother and finding out it's a corpse or whatever. All of that stuff is so heavy in pop culture that I bet a lot of people know those references and may not even know they come from the movie Psycho.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I do have... It's not a memory of the movie. I remember being confused when I found out, probably, I would guess in my late teens or early 20s, that it was an Alfred Hitchcock flick. Yeah. Because my first impressions of the movie were on the horror shelves that I barely ever went down when I was a kid at the video store, because there were, in the 80s, when all of these things were coming out, all of a sudden there were like 3 and 4 of them now, and they had those covers where you could tell that they were these, in my head, they were mixed in with all the Nightmares and Freddy's and whatever else, and so they were right there. So that's the image I had of this franchise, and then one day I learned that Alfred Hitchcock made Psycho, and I'm like, I just immediately start imagining an Alfred Hitchcock Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever, and I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Which, I mean, is not what it was. All right, well, let's talk about the movies. Starting with the first one, 1960 Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock, and so like Alfred Hitchcock was already one of the biggest directors in Hollywood at this time, and he had done North by Northwest, and I believe he had just finished shooting Vertigo when he was looking for the next project, and I think maybe his wife handed him the book Psycho and was like, hey, check this out, and he immediately decided, oh, this is what's next. But then he couldn't get it made. Even though he was Alfred Hitchcock, nobody wanted to make this movie. And so he had to do it because it was horror, and they didn't make horror. And even, he was like, he's become known as, this master of suspense now and everything. And he was then. He was making great movies. But, like, I think a lot of people today think of him as, like, this master of suspense and almost like, I think of him more as, like, a horror icon than I do as, like, a lot of his movies were like kind of noir, mystery.
But a lot of them did involve, high concept murder, especially for the time and stuff like that. So you kind of mix them together.
But Psycho became such a huge hit. It's like it changed his entire persona and perception in media, pop culture, all that stuff. So in trying to get this made, he worked for no money. He agreed to the money he did get. He agreed to take only, points on the back end or whatever that is. So he didn't get his normal director's salary. He couldn't get a big studio to back him, so he just shot it with his TV crew that was working on Alfred Hitchcock Presents with him. So it's this real, like, it's so interesting because so
like
often,
an indie film.
It's totally an indie film.
That's awesome.
What it is, it's totally a horror film because all the horror films, like the first one is always like super low budget, super guerrilla, and like I called my friend and I called this, and that always like and then it launches this franchise and it launches this like. It launches a lot of people's careers, and so it's super interesting just from the start. He was already... It'd be like Steven Spielberg deciding to make, like, well, let's do... I want to make an indie film. Yeah. Like if Steven Spielberg all of a sudden decided he was going to make Scream or something.
Yeah.
Story of Psycho. Gosh, it's so good. I don't even know where to start because it's
like the first like 20 minutes play like a noir.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Like a mobster movie almost, or something along those lines, just like a crime thriller.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's one of the standout things about this movie, especially for somebody who doesn't know anything about it and has never seen it before. that it's got that big twist that's literally right in the middle of the movie, where the movie changes directions completely. It's suddenly a different film.
As I say, like it's at least 2 movies in one. You could almost argue 3.
And but it's done so well. You know, because there's so many times where you could watch a movie and that could be a complaint. It's like I watched 2 different movies. It didn't fit together. But this is the good way to do that. Yes. Because this is like it starts off one way, which kind of gets your mind going and following the story and wondering what's going to happen. But then something completely unexpected happens that just shifts the whole direction in the narrative. But it's interesting because you're like, oh, whoa, what? Yeah. Now, wasn't that the main character? What's happening now? The weirdo's the main character now? Oh my God, what is going to happen? You know, and then all of a sudden you're on this completely different ride, and I don't know, man. I love it. I love it so much. It's done so well.
So let me try and give a quick synopsis. We start with Marion Crane, who's played by Janet Leigh, who is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother.
Oh,
and she is with her boyfriend, Sam Loomis. No, not that one.
Dr. Loomis?
No, not that one.
Oh, okay.
Billy Loomis?
No, not that one either. And she wants to get married. They're having this torrid affair. They're in like a seedy motel where they come to do adult things. And
in the 60s?
In the 60s. Oh, it was very, very salacious.
Which basically the 50s still.
Separate beds though, still, right?
Very salacious. Oh no, they were in the same bed.
Oh,
yeah,
scandal.
Yep.
No wonder they couldn't get this movie made.
Right, right. So she wants to get married, and he gives her some excuse. He owes some debts, and he's still paying alimony to his first wife. So he can't get married until he doesn't want to get married until he's paid off his father's debts and his ex-wife is remarried. So she leaves disappointed, goes back to work, where just the weirdest cowboy
delivers the best line in the entire movie. It's as warm as fresh milk out there.
Dude, I feel like he's really. You remember that oil tycoon on The Simpsons that was like a cowboy and always had the 6-shooters?
That was him.
I feel like he's that dude.
He is
Probably
that dude.
is.
Yeah.
He is that dude.
I bet you anything that's exactly what that is.
It's as warm as fresh milk out there.
So he comes in and starts flashing around the unimaginable sum of $40,000 in cash. Slaps it on the table in front of her. Says he never carries around more than he can afford to lose.
Yeah. Because he's gonna buy a house.
He's gonna buy a house on Monday for his daughter.
For his daughter's wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
So Marion Crane
sees a big house in the 60s.
Yeah. Marion Crane sees this money and thinks, her boss sends her to put it in the safe deposit box because he doesn't even want it in the office over the weekend.
Yeah.
And then they'll deposit it on Monday or do whatever.
Well, I think he tells her, because I think the whole thing too is like that's a stupid amount of money, and I don't want to hold that much money. So let's keep it in the safety deposit box over the weekend, and then on Monday morning we'll convince him to write us a check. That whole line of dialogue was.
That's right.
He was like, because the cowboy was already all like, let's go get hammered and have a night on the town. And like that was literally what was going on.
For sure.
So he was just like, all right, look, go take this money, put it in the safety deposit box over the weekend. On Monday morning, when his mind's in a better place, we're going to convince him just to write us a check like a normal person.
Right. So she decides she's going to, on her way to deliver the money to the safe deposit box, she decides she's just going to take that money and abscond to Arizona, which is where Sam Loomis, no, not that one, lives. And they're going to start their life with this $40,000, which I know in the 60s, that was just a bananas amount of money. And I also know that, there was no information superhighway back then. There was no internet. The phones were barely functional, So, but it just seems bananas to me that let's go from California to Arizona and start a new life with $40,000 was like a viable plan. It wasn't pure madness.
Yeah.
Well, anybody who would steal $40,000 so they could marry the guy that they're shacked up in a hotel room with, it clearly doesn't want to marry them. Probably isn't necessarily thinking the plan all the way through either.
Would you say it's a little bit psycho?
Ooh. Wait,
I wouldn't have before, but now clearly I would.
So she leaves California on the way down to Arizona. She encounters a super weird cop. She switches her car with the cop watching. After I always think that's weird. So this cop, she is driving and she pulls over to sleep on the side of the road, and this cop wakes her up and senses something's off because she is just the most suspicious person
you've
ever met.
My favorite part is when he asks for her license and registration, and she turns her back to the window to dig through her purse to make sure that he doesn't see that big giant envelope of money.
Right.
Could you get your license out any more suspicious than turning your back completely to the officer?
You could hold your purse open in front of him with $40,000 pouring out of it.
I guess so.
That's fair. So then she goes and switches her car, which also all while the cop is watching, the cop watches her switch her car, which you would think would just kind of defeat the purpose of switching your car.
Yeah.
But then after she switches the car, it's like he just gives up.
Yeah.
He pulls into that car lot dealership. And she drives off, and that's just the last we hear of that.
That's the last we hear of that part. Yeah. Well, he's like, I'm gonna have to look at that paperwork.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the last line we hear from.
Well, he realized everything seemed totally normal.
Yeah. Well, she traded in her car and then paid $400 or something like that. Oh, $700 in cash.
Yeah.
So that she can get a different car.
Yep.
Yeah.
How much was $700 in 1960?
I don't know. You're the banker.
Oh, well, that's why I asked.
You're supposed to just know exchange rates.
I was asking, but I was trying to ask before you guys could ask me.
John, you know movies
you really flipped that around on
money.
me.
That's your job here. What are you doing?
I got nothing.
Okay. So now we get.
Wow. Okay.
Oh.
So $700 in 1960 is equivalent to $6,146 in 2020.
Nice.
Oh, well, that's about the right.
So she's paid.
Because I was thinking, shouldn't she have rolled off in a Lambo? But no, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. That's crazy, though.
Yeah.
So and after she leaves the car lot, she arrives at the Bates Motel.
Mm-hmm.
The Bates Motel, is run by this, kooky kind of. He's not kooky. He's just kind of mild-mannered, very laid back. Suspiciously laid back, I would say.
Yeah.
And he makes her dinner.
He does have some weird little quirks to him. He's clearly not the cool guy by any means.
For sure.
He's a little quirky, but yeah, he seems like a nice fella.
Yeah. Until he murders her.
That was his mother.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Miss Janet Leigh has dinner with him. Here's
sandwiches and milk.
Sandwiches and milk.
Sandwiches and milk.
Here's mother screaming at him in the house as he's trying to sneak out of the kitchen with these sandwiches and milk. Mm-hmm. That some very not nice things about Mrs. Janet Leigh. Then they have a super awkward conversation surrounded by the creepiest taxidermiest birds ever.
Yeah, because he loves taxidermy. That's a thing.
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And what a great scene that is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What a great scene that is. Because she walks in that room. It's the parlor, because she wants him to come into her room to have dinner. And she invites him in. She doesn't want him. She invites him in. And he's like, well, how about the office? And they walk into the office, and he's like, well, this is too auspicious. How about this parlor back here? And they walk into this parlor, and all those birds are stuck to the wall and hanging. Yeah. And they're all, owls and these bright-eyed birds just staring at her.
Yeah.
Super, super awesome.
Yep.
And they have a real...
And she's thinking, this is what that cop felt like talking to me.
Then they have a super awkward conversation, and she retires for the evening, intent to leave first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. She goes and takes a shower.
Well, and then remember, too, because she told him that wasn't she gonna go back? Didn't she decide to go back and I need to basically she was like, I think I need to go back and undo some things before it gets worse or something like that. So
he talked about we all make our own personal traps.
Yeah.
So he said something so profound that she decided, I better go back and fix fix this.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was going to go back
Yep.
and make everything all better. That might have been the end of the movie for all we know, until the movie takes a total different
kind of was the end of the movie, just ended different than you expected.
Yep. That story finishes here.
Yep. So she's in the shower. Very famous sour sheen.
Yep.
Very famous sour sheen.
That's it.
And, of course, she's in there. And, boy, she enjoys that shower. I've never seen anybody enjoy a shower like she does.
We pointed out, too, that she totally did that movie thing where she just, like, got into the bathtub and then turned the shower onto her. Didn't wait for it to warm up or anything. Just blasted herself in the face.
That's not how you guys do it?
With the shower.
No.
But then she's so happy. Like, she's like, this is the greatest.
She's washing away all the guilt.
Dude, yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah.
That must have been it.
She felt great.
And then
Standing here, I'm going to go make everything right. I'm not going to get stabbed to death. It's going to be a good night. Yeah.
Boy, was she wrong about that.
Yep.
So the door creeps open, and the dark silhouette on the other side of the shower screen, and then it pulls open, and the knife.
Yes.
Totally iconic, dude. I feel like that scene never disappoints.
I love it.
And it's such a culmination, man, because like everything up to that point is just like building. The music is building. Like, you know, that movie is a runaway train that crashes in this scene.
Yeah.
And like everything builds to that.
Yeah.
And
that is the scene that, like, I mean, if you watch 5 movies a year and you're over 20, you've seen that scene 10 times in other movies. Like, you cannot avoid that because it shows up everywhere. But even long before I ever saw Psycho, I knew exactly what that was referencing. That's how iconic it is.
Yep.
Like, that is one of the grandest scenes in movie history, without a doubt.
Right. So then the movie switches.
Yep.
And Norman Bates becomes our protagonist.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it's, I guess, so that scene right before the shower murder, we get to see that he's got like a little peephole that looks into that room that he put her in. Mm-hmm. And he kind of watched her like get undressed and get in the shower, but then he kind of quickly just put the picture back up to cover the hole, and then we saw him run home.
Right.
So then the murder happens. And immediately after the murder, like the camera pans back over to the house where you hear Norman just yell, "Mother, mother, oh God, blood!"
Right.
So like they kind of make it out right away that the mother ran over there and just killed that girl for trying to sleep with her little boy.
Right.
Basically,
as you would.
Yeah.
Which she didn't.
Right.
But that's not the point.
Right.
For sure. So now we switch back. So like Norman becomes our main character now. But we do kind of switch back to Sam Loomis, who is meeting, what's her name? Marion's sister, Lila Crane.
Lila. Yep.
And it's Monday, and now they have to find, nobody's heard from Marion. Or it might be even it's probably a little later. I don't remember exactly. It's a little later.
Yeah, I don't know if they specified how long it's been, but enough time has passed that it's weird.
Yeah, and enough time that she knows she hasn't been to work. They know that she left with this money.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So she comes in to talk to Sam, who hasn't seen her and doesn't believe it. Right. She wouldn't do that kind of thing. You know that.
Right.
And Arbogast, is that his name? Arbogast.
Arbogast is the private detective.
The private detective shows up, and I love him in this movie, but he's almost the one thing that seems a little out of place. He's almost just a little too character-y, I feel. Yeah. Just a little. I mean, it's fine. Doesn't distract from the movie at all, but he shows up and he's, it almost seems like he's kind of doing this like Laurel and Hardy. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a one man, Laurel and Hardy. It's not like he shows up and he's like this hard boiled detective or anything.
Right.
But so everybody's on the hunt for Marion now. Arbogast is the first one to get to the Bates Motel. Has a conversation with Norman, and Norman is just completely, and that's a super fun scene.
Yeah,
because he's just playing Norman, because he's like, how about have you seen this girl? And Norman's like, nope. And he's like, could you actually look at the picture first? And Norman's like, oh, no, I haven't seen her.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, can I check your book? She might check in under a different name. Oh, yep, here's her name. Well, here's her handwriting.
Yeah.
He's got like a sample of her handwriting.
Yeah, sample, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, you want to look at it again? And he's like, and Norman's like, oh, well, it's a really bad picture. Really bad, and he just completely does not fool this guy at all. So this guy goes and he calls Lila Arbogast. He says, there's something fishy here. She was here. I know she was here. I'm going to go back and check it out. And he thinks she's hiding there. Right? He thinks this guy is hiding her. Well, Arbogast thinks Norman is hiding her. So he goes and he's trying to check in. Oh, and we haven't talked about the Bates mansion. Like, what a great set.
It's amazing.
Like, the imagery.
It's iconic.
So it's so gothic and sinister looking.
Yeah.
And how it mirrors Norman, because it's, like the Bates Motel is just this plain, simple motel. You pass 100 of them if you drive 15 miles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then behind it, there's this sinister gothic castle. It's great.
It's awesome.
It's a master at work.
Mm-hmm.
Well done, Hitch. So Arbogast sneaks into the house, starts poking around, and Mother pops out and slices him in the face. He falls down the stairs.
yeah.
And then he's dead. She comes down and stabs him to death.
Like, he calls first, right? Did we talk about how he called Lila to let her know? Okay, yeah. So, like, now Lila's gonna go check it out because he said he was gonna come meet her or whatever in an hour or something like that, so they could discuss. And
that's right.
He doesn't show up, so then she's like, "Well, I'm gonna go check it out."
Yep.
And Sam's like, "What? No, just wait for him to come back." And she's like, "No, he said an hour. I'm going," or whatever. So that's when she decides that she's gonna get herself involved.
Yep. Her and Sam go to the place.
Yep.
Actually, first I want to talk about Arbogast falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
Because that's such a Hitchcock scene.
Yeah.
And because he was always doing innovative stuff and different kinds of stuff with the camera moves, and that's one of the things he's known for. So that's a super Hitchcock scene.
I think they did that with like the screen behind him, and they did that thing where like they played the footage behind him to mimic because it looked like he was falling down the stairs. Yeah. I think that's how they pull that off.
Probably.
Yeah.
I feel like another thing, I feel like Arbogast is out of place. I feel like that scene is out of place. Like it's one of the scenes that doesn't feel like it fits in with all the rest. Mm-hmm. This movie is so meticulously laid out and fit together. Like that scene just feels a little too high concept. I don't even know what to call it. It just feels a little out of place.
I see what you're saying.
I also resent it because it's done in every sequel terribly.
They for sure just redo it.
There's a lot of this movie that's done in every sequel terribly.
Yeah.
So
that one, you're not wrong. Yeah. That one stands out to me because it's so visual. I guess it's just like every time it's like, ugh. Mm-hmm. So Sam and Lila show up at the Bates Motel. They search room 1 where Marion was staying. They find evidence that she was there. So now Lila's dead set to go up and sneak into the house and find out what's happening in the house.
Yeah. Sam
goes to distract Bates in the office. Lila searches the house. I love the scene with Sam distracting Norman because he's just like his idea of, hey, I'm gonna go distract this guy is just to go and accuse that guy of killing. You know what I mean? Like he just walks in there and he's like and just starts accusing him of where's she at? I know she was here. What'd you do with her? What do you think? And Norman's just like, what? No, I don't know. I think you ought to leave now. Until he realizes that he's being distracted.
Right.
And then he clocks that dude with a cookie jar, a vase, something.
Something like that,
knocks Sam Loomis out and runs up to the house. By then, Lila has snuck down into the fruit cellar. Mm-hmm. She's going to ask Mrs. Bates. She sees Mrs. Bates in the rocking chair, but she spins Mrs. Bates around, and oh my gosh, she's a mummified corpse.
A corpse.
And that's when Norman comes in the wig and dress with a knife.
Yep.
Scariest thing that 1960 could think of, a dude in a dress.
Yeah.
And horror ensues.
Yeah.
Horror was had by everybody.
Yeah. Well, that's the moment, right?
Yep.
That's the, oh my God, it was Norman the whole time. Moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Right as he's about to super murder Lila, Sam Loomis comes back in and wrestles him and tears the dress off him, and it's weird. It's a weird scene. And then we get my one main problem with this movie. We get like 10 solid minutes of that psychiatrist just monologuing to explain the plot to the audience.
To explain what's... Yeah, that does feel a little long and a little, like, longer than it should. Like, I totally get the point of it there and, like, explaining, he's actually the split personality thing. And he says something like, it's Norman and his mother in his head, but actually he's most of the time he's his mother. You know, and kind of goes...
I kind of like that they win it, because I think a lot of times there is this... it's fun when you have the endings where it's sort of, like, well, this is kind of what they're hinting at, but you could take it 10 different ways, for sure. But it almost felt refreshing, because rarely do you get to the ending where they're like, where you sit there going, oh, it was really him. Was he crazy, or is he just weird, or what's going on? And then you just get a 5-minute explanation of exactly what they're thinking of it story-wise. So it definitely went long. Yeah. But I thought it was kind of, like I said, just refreshing in that weird sort of way that
it does.
You don't see it done that often, you know.
Yeah. It does end in that really great scene though with Norman.
Well, I want to come to that.
Okay, all
right. I still want to. The other thing I want to say about the psychiatrist scene, like, I think it also ages poorly.
For sure.
1960s, they probably really needed that explanation.
Yeah, that could be.
We have, not only do we have the benefit of in like 2020, and even like by the 80s and 90s, we had more of an idea about psychology and stuff like that. So that wouldn't have been... I don't think this movie would have ended on like a mystery, like, oh, was he crazy? Did the mom come to life sometimes? Like, what was happening?
Yeah.
If they hadn't explained that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And also, it's impossible to look at it without the hindsight bias of like years of this movie being iconic and like knowing what is going on going into it most of the time.
Yeah.
So like knowing that, then we get to the end of the movie and there's this 10-minute monologue explaining everything we already knew, everything I knew before I started watching this movie. Thanks, psychiatrist. Yeah. But it is totally worth sitting through, because then we get
that scene with Norman where he's sitting in the little room isolated by himself, and he's thinking to himself, but it's totally Mother's voice.
Yes.
And he's doing that whole thing where he's basically like, I'll just show them how harmless I am. Look, this fly is going to land on me. I won't even swat the fly, and they'll see that. And he's just, it's super creepy, and it's just, like, because he even kind of does, like, the creepy smile thing at the end, which just, like, really solidifies it.
And I think that
it's amazing.
That's one of the main things that I think gets lost in history when you have, if you take the sequels into account for sure, and I don't know a lot about I've seen Anthony Perkins and other things, I couldn't name one off the top of my head without looking to see what it was.
Neither could anybody else.
But he was really, really good in this movie.
Really good.
Like
amazing.
Yeah, like absolutely astounding. He just had this way of being like super creepy but super charming, and it wasn't even like necessarily at the same time, but like it's like he could flip that switch in the middle of a scene, or a sentence sometimes.
Yes.
I was so impressed with his facials. Sometimes, like just the little twitches he would do with like the corners of his mouth and stuff. It was amazing.
Yep. And the 3 sequels that followed with him are all a lot schlockier.
Yes.
But the saving grace of any of them is that you still see hints of that throughout the whole. Yeah. Like even he's pretty bad in a couple of these, probably all 3 of them really. But there's always like these moments where you just remember how good he was in the first one.
Yes. Yeah. And then the whole movie comes to a close with them pulling the car out of the swamp finally, and it's just kind of that fun thing because like they pull it out, the money's still in there, and it's just like that. It almost like you get your like. You're finished to that first story at the very end of this movie. They got the money back in the end. They found the car. You know, it's so funny that's the point. It is the end of the movie.
It is as close as you can get to a perfect movie, a perfect story. You know, like it's everything. So everything builds. Everything pays off. Like everything gets wrapped up, and like of all the movies that didn't need a sequel, should never have had a sequel, this has to be like at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yep. Well, when because even when we were sitting down talking about doing this movie, and you were like, "Well, there's 4 of those." I was like, "How are there 4 of these? Why are there 4 of these?" Because even after watching all these movies and having a lot of fun doing it, I will say, at the end of the day, there was no need to do anything past this first story.
No,
right.
This is a perfectly contained story that just doesn't need any further explanation. It's perfect how it is.
Artistically, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
But then we got 1980 and the slasher genre on the rise, and you have this perfect property, and you have Anthony Perkins apparently willing to go and
Universal
do
was
it
like,
again.
we got to cash in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the almighty dollar is you know, the reason that moves forward. But it's so interesting how that franchise fleshes out because of that, though, because you have this like classic, all-time classic of cinema.
Yeah.
You know, one of the anybody would identify it as one of the top probably 50 movies of all time,
right.
If not even higher than that. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, you just have these 3 schlocky sequels come bounding out
like
of
back
nowhere.
To back almost. I mean, they're literally just like within a couple years of each other. Like boom, boom, boom. 2, 3, and 4.
Yep. And they get progressively worse, which is impressive.
Like, you know what? I almost feel like it. I feel like it bounced back a little bit at the end. A little bit.
You like 4?
I like it better than 3. I really don't like 3.
3's not good. 4 is also not good.
4 is not good, and I'm not even going to talk about 2 first.
Let's start with 2.
Let's talk about 2.
Like, I want to like 2.
Yeah.
Like, the story makes just enough sense. Like, at least the lead into it, like, when they set it up at the beginning, it's like, oh, he's getting out of prison now, and he's going to go try to adjust, and you're like, all right.
So,
20
years
later,
actually
maybe.
Is like 20 years later.
Yeah.
So, like,
and then when they do the reveal in 2, which is probably a little over halfway through,
right?
You know, and then they reveal that the basic setup is Norman's getting out of jail. He comes back, retakes the hotel, which is being run by Dennis not Farina, Franz.
Yes.
And, that was the one thing. Like, every one of these movies just featured people I recognized,
right?
Which I thought was funny.
So let me talk about the movie before we get to it.
Okay.
So first of all, Psycho, 1960, Psycho 2, 1983.
That's insane.
Oh, was it 80? I was thinking it was 80, but yeah, 83. Yep.
23 years later.
23 years later.
That's so nuts.
So first of all, they greenlit this movie. I think the documentary I watched said 3 months after Hitchcock died. So he was like full on, like he was the one stopping them from making sequels. Yeah. And like immediately after his death, they're like, great, Psycho sequels now.
We got it.
Yeah. Now, there also was a bit of pushback. The director really wanted to make this movie, and the director was Richard Franklin, who's done some other stuff that we know. Richard Franklin has done... not those. It's not going to list any of them for me. All right, well, we don't need to talk about Richard Franklin. But he wanted to do this movie. He's done some other movies that we've heard of.
Yeah.
He wanted to do this one. The studio jumped on board, but initially they were thinking, and because we're in the middle of the slasher craze, and by now we've had
like I really had it in my head that it was 80, but 83 makes so much more sense timeline wise because it really has like kicked into high gear at this point.
Initially they were talking about making it a made for TV movie. Which seems weird that it's a slasher, but they're like, oh, made for TV. So they start into production with, but again, it kind of mirrors the original because they start in with like a TV crew, and Richard Franklin was really big about sort of reproducing the process to to make the Hitchcock's process to make Psycho 2. But when he was working with the writer, they knew that in order to make this a real movie, they had to get Perkins back. And at the time, Anthony Perkins was still a bit resentful because after Psycho, he was just Norman Bates. He was typecast. And so he went through that kind of like, oh, this movie was the biggest thing. I even saw an interview with him where he said, it took me from being that guy in a movie to being the guy people knew walking down the street, but I also could not be that guy in a movie anymore. I had to be Norman Bates.
Oh, yeah.
So he ended up getting typecast a lot, and it wasn't getting roles that were satisfying to him. And so, like, they talk about when they were making Psycho 2, they knew they had to write a script that would attract Perkins back. So they had to write it, so they wrote this real character-y exploration of Norman Bates just so Anthony Perkins would read it and go, oh, this is an actor's role. I want to do this.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it worked. So we get Psycho. The other thing I want to say is that, we talk about Psycho kind of leading the way on a lot of stuff. And here's this other thing where they're doing the sequel 23 years later, and in the movie universe, it's 23 years later, which is something we do all the time now. Like, that's, like that's a big thing.
Right.
Yep. Psycho did it first.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
Something else I said to you while we were watching this, the world seems so different between 1960 and 1980, and movies looked so different from 1960 to 1980. But man, that's just the year 2000 to now.
Yeah.
And that's real weird to think about.
For sure. For sure. Well, I mean, look at how different even just movies look.
Yeah.
That's
now
true.
They can,
That's true.
because 2002 to 3, like, there was a big jump in special effects in like 93 to 94, and then there was another big jump in like 2002 to 2003. And the progression since then has just been so steady that you think back to all these movies where they seem like yesterday, some of them. Like even like the early like superhero movies, like the early Spider-Mans and stuff, you think back
X-Men
on those.
Was 2000.
That
was 20 years ago. That's nuts.
Yep. And when you think back on those, like in your mind, they play exactly like today's do. And if you watch them, they totally hold up for that record, and the effects are real good and everything. But if you watch like the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the first Tom Holland Spider-Man, there is a marked difference between what those things look like. It doesn't always play in your mind until you're viewing it, but that's how it goes. It's like there's so much time that just has moved along there, and then obviously these aren't giant special effects extravaganzas, but you can still see the same in the technology of the cameras themselves and how everything is shot and looked and lit and all sorts of stuff. In color.
I was just saying color.
I guess that's a big one.
But like even like the way that like the characters deliver their lines, and just it's really interesting having it's really interesting having a sequel to a movie from 1960 landing in the middle of the 80s. But it's the same main actor. It was I don't know, for me it's really jarring.
And I think that's why like 2's a mixed bag in my head, because I know it's not that great. But there are parts of it I enjoyed, and I liked that. Like, I like where they picked the story up. Okay, so he's getting out of jail. He's on parole or whatever. He's coming back to town. The town is shockingly accepting of this for the most part. A lot of people are just like, "Well, it was a long time ago, and he paid his debts."
He was found innocent.
Was he?
Innocent by
okay.
So he's not getting out of jail. He's getting out of the mental ward.
Okay.
Well, we laughed immediately because they're just like, "You're out. Here's the house that made you crazy. See you later," and they just like dump them back off at that house.
Yep. Well, that was funny too, because he's like, "Well, I guess I own this mansion and I own this hotel and I'll go work in this diner."
Right. Washing dishes.
But he gets out. He gets his job at the diner, but he goes and takes back over the hotel. He immediately meets the hotel manager, who he immediately dislikes.
Who is immediately a total sleazebag.
Oh, for sure. And that's kind of like the point I was going to get at is one of the things I love, especially for the first like half of this movie or however long, is you are building this world that is basically this 80s slasher flick world with these sleazeball characters and all that stuff in it, and then you're taking this Hitchcock character who was masterfully portrayed in 1960, and basically he's still pretty good here, and you're just dropping that character into this world, and it is really kind of fun to watch that play out, especially at the beginning, you know. So he's working at this diner. He meets this waitress that also works there.
Dude, like you saying that just kind of unlocked. He's got a very Jimmy Stewart vibe going the first 45 minutes of the movie.
We even
Dude,
pointed out how he's still dressed like he's living in the 1960s at the beginning of this movie.
Well, because the last time he was sane and out in the world, it was, you know, so like everything
he's got the big pleated, you know, khaki pants or whatever, the slacks and the button-up shirt. Like he's dressed like the 1960s.
Well, it's like that character reflects that change in time because that character was basically locked in time and now is set free again, you know? So it's really interesting to watch and dissect and just enjoy. So, but he meets this waitress who was played by, I think it's Meg Tilly, who was Jennifer Tilly's sister. Who you can tell immediately if you just look at her face.
Immediately.
Yeah.
He looks so much like Jennifer Tilly.
So she, she does this. She's supposed to go live with her boy. She was living with her boyfriend, and she gets kicked out over the phone, and is trying to figure out where to go. So Norman invites her back to the hotel, and they kind of replay some of the Janet Leigh style interactions with her. You know, he's doing his creepy but charming, but doesn't really belong shtick, and
milk.
And she
that was just a thing, sandwiches and milk.
And she's doing is kind of creeped out, but is overly trusting, and kind of playing that same sort of role right there. And then as we progress through the story there, and the murders start pretty quick. Mother kills Dennis Franz pretty early there. I don't remember who. So I'm getting some of the kills mixed up between the movies. So
just to jump in real quick, because you're talking about like how they started doing the 80s slasher motif a little bit. He was totally the character that we wanted to see get killed.
Oh, for sure.
Like they immediately introduced that guy as, oh, I can't wait till Norman Bates just snaps and kills this guy. And then that's exactly what happens.
Well, this is also the one where apparently kids sneak into the Bates house.
That's right. That's the other. I knew he killed somebody else in the middle there, and that's who it was.
Mother kills those kids. Which is
the girl gets away.
Does the girl get away?
I thought the girl.
The girl got away.
Okay. I thought I remembered.
She killed the boy one. The girl one got away.
All right.
The boy one.
Yeah. And so they start investigating him, but they can't find any evidence of anything going on. They can't find any bodies. As we progress here, it's what is the character? Lila Crane. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's back too.
Yep. So Lila, and she's
played by Vera Miles, same actress.
Yep. And she's been there, throughout the movie, coming and warning people that he's a murderer, and we shouldn't be letting him out, and it's insane, and we gotta catch him and get him back in jail, and everybody, like even the cops in town, are telling her, like, calm down, he's paid his debt. Just let him live, whatever. And then when people start dying again, she starts turning it up a notch. Mm-hmm. Well, we find out somewhere, like I said, probably a little over halfway through the movie, that as it turns out, this girl that he's been trying to help and protect and whatever is actually her daughter.
Yes.
And so this is a plot between those two to drive him crazy so that
he can take him back to jail or whatever.
Exactly. But Meg Tilly has developed, I don't know if she's developed feelings for him per se, but she's at least sympathetic towards him.
Exactly.
She has seen that maybe he is reformed, maybe he is a good guy, maybe we are screwing with him for no reason. So she starts kind of working against her mother a little bit as it goes. And then he just keeps getting the phone calls, and he starts really reacting. Like, even when they're coming through and there's nobody on the other end, he starts talking to Mother.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. It worked.
Yeah.
They actually drove him back to like he was totally fine until Lila started screwing with him. Mm-hmm. So she actually drove him crazy again. It's so crazy.
And to the point where even, Meg starts to try to pick up the phone in another room and talk to him as Mother and try to break him out of it, and it never really works. And at one point towards the end, she even puts the dress and the wig on and tries to convince him that she's Mother. While he's on the phone with Mother, so she's trying to reason with him while wearing his mother's wig and dress. It's very bizarre, how it plays out. But then he ends up killing Lila Crane, which was awesome.
Yes,
full out. That's one of my favorite slasher flick death scenes ever,
sure.
because he comes at her with this knife, and they just straight up show the side shot of him coming down with it, and it just goes right in her mouth and out the back of her neck.
I feel like that was probably the most grotesque kill out of all of these movies.
That was one of the most grotesque kills out of a lot of different movies.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. But like, as far as like the psychos go specifically, like most of the kills in these are pretty low key,
for sure.
You know, when you compare them to other slasher flicks,
like I love
that one was full on 80s slasher style.
I love the psycho kills in the schlocky ones because they're just and like the knife going like this, and then the people going for like a full minute, you know, like you're getting stabbed.
And in the later ones, there's blood, so there's like somebody slinging around red syrup, red corn syrup, and it's just so like bright red, and it's like flinging everywhere, like it's yeah.
Yep. So he kills the mother, and then he starts going full on crazy. Still, he's got the phone calls coming in and everything. What is is it Mary? Is that her name or what? I can't remember.
Who?
Meg Tilly. I'll just keep calling her Meg Tilly.
Is Mary Loomis?
It is Mary. Okay, yeah. So Mary keeps trying to break him out of it. He goes crazy and starts chasing her through the house, and so she's running away. She ends up going into the basement and finding her mother's body, and then so she kind of freaks out and is going to attack him with a knife, and that's when the cops show up, and she's in the act of attacking him because she had been stabbing him also, which that was super creepy.
Yeah,
because he comes at her, so she kind of starts stabbing him in the hands, and he just doesn't stop. She just keeps poking him and poking him and walking away, begging him to stop still, trying to break him out of it while she's just poking him, you know?
He grabs the knife at that one point. Did he do the finger thing? Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yep, nice.
Yeah.
So, as she freaks out and starts to attack him, the cops end up coming in and shooting her, and so he gets off scot-free, basically.
She was still wearing the dress and everything.
Yep, so she's
got her the whole time.
Yep, exactly.
We got her, boys. Good job. We don't need to investigate this.
Small town 80s sheriff. And so then the movie ends basically with him getting away with all of this stuff, and we don't know where he is mentally, but then he gets this visit from, I think he invited her over, this other woman who, she worked in the diner, didn't she?
We met her at the diner earlier in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was her name? Because it was something specific that I can't remember.
Well, so she comes over and
Emma Spool.
Yep.
Spool.
Yeah. Yep.
Spool. That's what it was.
So she comes over and they're having a discussion, and he's figured out something about her, and so she just lays it all out for him that she's actually his mother, and she gave him up because she went crazy when he was a baby. So her sister took him in, and it was her sister that he actually killed. But she's been his mother the whole time, and she's back now, and so everything's going to be okay. And she's the one who killed everybody in Psycho 2, isn't she? Because didn't she talk about coming back and like she couldn't let all these people like ruin his legacy and do whatever? So he didn't kill anybody up until that point,
Up until he killed Lila, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, was that even him killing Lila? I can't remember for sure if we saw his face there or not.
Oh, I don't know.
Like I assumed it was up until that moment when they did that swerve, and then I was like thinking back, going, I thought we saw him do it, but now I don't remember for sure if we did or not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
She did say that, though, didn't she? She did say that she was.
Sure.
She was doing it to protect him.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely killed the manager and the teenager.
Right, because that's the twist that it wasn't Lila. Because we get to the scene with Lila, we assume it's Lila.
Right.
But then it's not Lila.
Instead, it was this old lady Spool.
Emma Spool.
Mm-hmm. Old lady Spool.
And so Norman immediately serves her poison tea. Yep. And as she's dying from the poison tea, he smacks her.
I didn't realize he had poisoned the tea.
Oh yeah, she takes the tea and she starts to, Norman, whatever, because they had also set that up earlier because it was the same tea that he had poisoned his mom with.
Okay,
and there was like a box of Lipton, and then there was like a canister of
arsenic or whatever.
Poison tea.
Yeah,
and he made her the poison tea.
Yeah.
And
still said tea, but it had a skull and crossbones on it.
Yes. So she's starting to die, and he just picks up his kitchen shovel
while he's offering her some sandwiches. Still, like, you sure you wouldn't like some sandwiches? Bam! And then which was hilarious.
And then he carries her upstairs, and we get
taxidermies her or whatever, or mummifies her,
or what? Well, for now he just sets her in the chair.
Well, yeah.
So he carries her upstairs, and he's like, "Oh, I want to put you to bed, Mother." And this is the first time we hear Mother's voice in this one.
Yeah.
No, Norman, set me in the chair.
Yeah.
I want to watch from my chair. And he comes down, and that scene, it's like a goosebump scene when because he comes out the front door. Because then she yells at him, "Go down and run the motel. What do you expect us to live on?"
Yeah.
so he's headed back down to the motel. But he just comes out, and they get that wide shot of the Bates mansion, and you can see Mother back in the window, and he's just there in the forefront, just a great silhouette, you know what I mean? And like there's a storm rolling over. It was such a great shot.
It was actually a really fun ending to this, and I didn't necessarily know how I felt about the whole "I'm your real mother" thing. I thought that was a little silly. However, I liked the way that they reset everything by doing that. Because it was fun that she immediately came in and was like, "Well, I'm your real mother," and he was like, "Oh, all right, cool," and then just murders her so that he can have a new mother in the house. That's awesome. I love that.
Yep. And that's kind of where I live on this movie, because it has a bunch of the 80s schlock feel to it, which is fine. I like those movies. It is such a removal from the quality of the original. Yeah. It's jarring.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept.
Yes.
But it also has all these reminiscent moments from or aspects, elements, whatever, from the first one. Like, it does take some of the good out of that movie and plop it into this schlocky 80s slasher flick, which is weird but enjoyable.
So I love this movie. I think it is so good. You're not wrong about the schlock. And obviously it's not Psycho, but I think this is as good as you get with horror sequels. Mm-hmm. I think it was the perfect spiritual successor to Psycho in that, they had that great... I mean, had it just been like Norman coming back and being the killer, all over again, like that would not have felt... You know what I mean? That would have felt like... Not exploitative. I don't really know what the word is, but kind of exploited. Like they missed the point. It would feel like they missed the point of Psycho. Yeah. So to come back and have it be, have not only the red herring of Lila Crane back in there, but also it was this mother the whole time, and then to sort of reset his world like that at the end. I thought this was as satisfying a sequel as you could make two as you could make two sequels.
And I don't know that I disagree. I don't know that I disagree with that. I haven't been able to reconcile the mixed feelings on how it goes, because I don't know that I don't have a better idea for a Psycho sequel, and I do like this movie for sure. Like I say, it's such a departure quality wise, which you have to have in there. Right. And then I do feel like they have. Like there's like 3 twists at the end there.
Yeah.
Which seems like too many, except they're all fine. Like none of them are bad, I don't like spiritually that they just threw the "I'm your real mother" thing in for like 10 seconds at the end, but when it resets the franchise in the way you were talking about, like it's like it makes it worth it. Yeah. So it's kind of like when that whole thing started, I was just like, and then it ended like that, and I was like, oh, okay, well at least I had a point, because usually the point of that scene is just another swerve. Yeah, this one actually led somewhere. Yeah. I really liked the swerve about the girl being in cahoots with Lila and that whole thing going on there.
Well, see, to me, and so to me, you talked about there being like 3 twists right there in a row. Yeah, it felt like the Lila, like the Megan Tilly and Lila Crane twist was like a slow burn twist, and we like found out little things along the way that didn't make it feel like, twist back, you thought you knew, now we're doing something. You know what I mean? Like I felt like it was a slow burn. Oh, you thought you knew, you did.
Yep.
So
yeah.
But you said you didn't have a better idea for a sequel. Psycho
sequel.
For another sequel.
I take Psycho when I have flu symptoms.
Yeah.
But Anthony Perkins did.
Oh, really?
Because we get a third one of these movies.
Oh.
It's the worst.
That's his idea for the sequel?
So to make everything bad?
He directed.
No, that was
right?
yes.
Yeah, he directed 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
And I think 4 was made for, didn't he?
He did not direct 4.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. 4 was made for TV, wasn't it?
Was 4 made for TV?
4 was made for Showtime.
4 looked
that's
like
not
a made
Showtime
for
TV.
TV.
It was a Showtime movie.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's still, it feels like a made for television type thing. Now
So-
that you say that, that makes total sense.
So Anthony Perkins agreed to come back for Psycho 2. And he worked for his normal salary, but he also had some money guaranteed on the profits on the back end that they just totally never paid him and screwed him out of.
Ah, boo.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when they wanted to do a third Psycho, the way he really wanted to direct and nobody would let him direct because he's bad at it. Prove it, as we would find out. But that was his deal. He was like, look, I'll come back and we'll do another Psycho if you let me direct it. And they did. And it's not good.
Yeah, I don't even.
So the thing I do want to say is like,
Danny can't even.
Like when we watch Psycho 3, they talked about the Psycho movies have obviously Hitchcock, who defined his own genre or his own style, right? And then Psycho 2, they very much tried to mimic that style as much as they could in the modern style of movies.
Yeah, sure.
Anthony Perkins had no interest in doing that. He was a huge fan of like French New Wave and like the very dramatically lit, very moody style movies. And I started watching this with you.
Yeah,
and dozed off at the end.
Yeah, you fell asleep at the end.
So I had to go back and rewatch it.
I was wondering if you did.
Yes. When we watched it here, I hated it.
Man.
By the time I rewatched it, I'd kind of seen some talk about, and so like when I rewatched it, I got to rewatch it through the lens of like, okay, so this is first of all a guy's first attempt at directing a real movie. Okay. Also, it's a guy who's trying to make like a new wave. Well, he's trying to make a slasher flick, but like wrapped in this sort of French New Age moodiness. And it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to watch it with that lens and kind of see like, oh, like this is an interesting experiment. Mm-hmm. You know, in
I was gonna say you're saying all these words like they're a sell.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to sell. I'm trying to say there might be something interesting. Like if you really like, there's an interesting thing happening here that doesn't work. Better to innovate and fail.
Which I will say, in general, there's a lot of movies I like that are interesting things happening that just don't quite work, but I can see what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I really respect or enjoy them for that. I do not count this among their
nor do I.
Oh, yeah.
Nor do I. I still don't think this is a good movie. I still don't think any of it worked. I don't even necessarily respect what he tried to do. I just see that it's there and it's kind of interesting to watch. Yeah. There's so many just gonzo scenes in this. So I'm gonna run this one down even quicker because it's not worth discussing.
It's not worth a huge.
But it comes 3 years later, so is 86. I don't know if they said how much time it elapsed in the movie world from Psycho 2, but we're full on in Norman Bates back talking to Mother. Talking to the corpse of his mother.
Yeah.
Running the
corpse of the new mother.
Yeah.
Corpse of the new mother.
Which may or may not be his mother.
Which may or may not be his mother.
Like, because they kind of at some point try to undo all that.
Yeah. They did. They totally undo all that.
Yeah. He's running the hotel. So Dwayne shows up, who is like this
the lawnmower man,
drifter, rock star.
His friends call him Duke.
His friends call him Duke.
That guy doesn't have friends.
I guess first we need to talk about
that nun who killed that other nun.
Yeah, Maureen the Nun.
Yeah.
Who she was a nun. She was going to kill herself. Because this movie opens with a nun screaming, "There is no God!" and getting ready to jump to her death.
Yeah.
And all the other nuns run up to try and help her, and she accidentally knocks one off and murders her instead of murdering herself.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, you can kind of see like, oh, there's something Somebody's got a vision for this movie.
Yeah. This movie starts off with a nun screaming, "There is no God," and then Hollywood spending 92 additional minutes trying to prove that. If there was a God, would he allow this to exist?
So she leaves the convent, gets picked up hitchhiking by Dwayne, who immediately Weinsteins her.
You can call him Duke.
And she runs. Duke. And so she runs out of Duke's car and runs off into the desert. And he drives up to the Bates Motel and gets a job working as the clerk. So then she shows back up and...
Duke, also an effective nickname for the movie.
Nice. So she stumbles upon the same motel.
Yeah, so she stumbles upon the same motel.
That dude's already working there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that dude brings her in. And she meets Norman. So and this whole time Norman's just kind of ambling around the background, and he's like the quirky old guy. Like everybody in the diner still likes. So he's like the quirky old guy around town now. You know, everybody in the diner. And there's that reporter who's
she doesn't like him.
No.
Well, but she also kind of does, because she comes in and like at first you assume she's there to like capitalize on his fame, but then when she talks to him. Because the diner owner and the sheriff and everybody, they're like, just leave him alone. Why do you people always come around? Yeah. Just let the man live his life. And she's like, okay, whatever. And then she tries to talk to him because he just happens to show up at the diner right then. And she's talking about wanting to do a article on the state not taking good care of people who have been acquitted because of the insanity plea. So it almost seems like she's there... Not to help? Scientific, not to help, just like to get his experience, not to like capitalize on the sensationalism of him turning himself into his mother type thing, But who knows? Because this movie is garbage, so none of that ever goes anywhere. It never goes anywhere. This movie just goes off the rails right away.
There's a homecoming for 50-year-olds.
There's a homecoming for 50-year-olds. So there's all these people at the motel to get killed now. And this movie is like this movie is full on slashing.
Yeah. And it was just bonkers, dude.
Yeah.
Like, oh, these people are all here for the big game, the big homecoming game, and they're like all 50.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, the big game, woo! It's like, what homecoming is this? What is going on?
In playing field or playing hill?
In fairness, I don't know what, I know it was filmed in Illinois. I don't know where it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be in California.
Okay, and I don't know exactly, but like if this were in like Texas, that would make total sense. Because I was just saying, there's a lot of like communities in certain states and areas that are like they are like
school.
Their high school football is the NFL for their entire lives forever.
You're totally right, and that must have been what was going on here.
I guess.
But it was hilarious to me that like all these 40 and 50-year-old people are booking up the hotel to party
because they were all in a slasher flick and they were playing the annoying drunk teenagers.
Yes,
they were just clearly 50.
Yes. I wonder if they had like gray hair in his beard and stuff. Yeah. So Norman. So we should talk. Maureen the Nun is like this. She's got short blonde hair. So Norman keeps having flashbacks to Janet Leigh.
Yeah. Which, man, the first time that happened, I checked out immediately.
You didn't like Janet Leigh.
Yeah, exactly. There's no resemblance there other than like the sketch artist features.
Right.
Right.
It was so forced.
Yeah.
But so they're kind of developing. Oh, she tries to kill herself. I did kind of think that was even though I saw it coming 3.5 miles away. They do this. They make it seem like we're going to get another shower scene. Like he's going to replay the shower.
They recreate every moment of that up until the point where he moves the curtain.
Yeah, and then he moves the curtain, and she's cut her wrist, so she's trying to commit suicide again.
Yep. Yeah.
And Andy's totally back in the mother garb.
Yeah.
But he takes her to the hospital. There's some other stuff somewhere in there. Dwayne figures out.
She sees the image as she's fading.
Yeah, thinks he's
Mary.
Yeah, she thinks he's Mary.
Yeah. Somewhere in there, Dwayne figures out that he's killing people again, and tries to blackmail him.
Dude, he like brings the mother's corpse into his room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so that scene was hilarious because he's all like, "I'm on to you. Look, I got your mother. What are you gonna do about it?" And then Norman just murders him.
Yeah. Well, but
And that's the end of that.
Well, the other thing too is like they totally do that scene. That one super awkward scene where like Norman is going into Maureen's room with her, and he says something like Dwayne's standing outside smoking a cigarette, and he says something to Dwayne about, hey, watch the Office. I'll be back in a minute. And there's this super dramatic scene out of nowhere for no reason with no setup where Dwayne, like, he's leaned against the post and he looks at him and everything's blacked out. But there's like the light strip across his eyes, so like his eyes are the only thing that's lit, and he's like, "Whatever you say, boss." And it's just completely, and like hindsight being 2020, I know that signifies it's after he has already discovered what's going on.
Yeah.
So like it kind of signifies this twist in Dwayne's character, shift in Dwayne's character, but it's bad. It's bad and it's out of nowhere and it's just super and it's bad.
It's all bad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you say he just murders him and that's that. It took a while to murder Dwayne.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
Like he stabs him. He beats him with his guitar.
That's right.
Yep.
He hits him with the lamp.
Yep. Then he gets choked by him. Then he crashes a car with him. Then he chokes him some more. Then he drowns him. Then
Not good.
Yeah. Woof.
Not good.
Yeah. Dwayne was a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They accidentally kill Maureen, which is super. And the scene, so there's a scene where he's trying to send Maureen away because he knows things are bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're standing at the top of the stairs, and she's like, "Norman, talk to me," and he's like, "No, I can't." She's like, "Norman, talk to me," and then you hear Mother yell, "Norman!" and then she just goes flying down the stairs.
Yeah.
And I've read some places where people are like, well, the Mother character distracted the Norman persona, and then Mother shoved her down the stairs.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm.
That is more thought than this movie deserves.
That is so much more thought than this movie deserves. And also, I rewatched that scene because I read that and I was like, shenanigans. That did not happen that way. And that is some, like, you are doing some major
You're trying really hard to make Psycho 3 good.
Exactly. Because that scene is totally just like it hard cuts for like they're standing at the top of the stairs and you hear Mother's voice, and that scene hard cuts to that down the stairs scene.
Yeah.
And then she hits a spike. There's like a spike at the bottom of the stairs.
Oh yeah.
That stabs her in the back of the head, and she's dead.
Yeah. Oh.
There's that super stupid scene where the cop is eating the bloody ice.
Yep. What the hell, man?
So Norman was that the reporter?
The teenage girl.
Oh, the teenage girl. That's right.
The one teenager that was hanging out with the homecoming party.
Yes. That slept with Dwayne.
Yeah.
That then Norman killed.
Oh no, you're talking about two different girls.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, the one that slept with Dwayne was like the first kill in like the phone booth or whatever. Right. I think the girl in the ice was the girl who he killed on the toilet or whatever.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Yes.
Okay, you're right.
Because then they thought that he was making out with her around the corner. Remember when he was hiding?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, somebody's getting lucky tonight.
Yeah.
And then he shoved her in the ice thing, the ice cooler.
So they shove her in the ice cooler because that's the one time the cops show up to like inspect. Because this group of 50-year-old partiers is like, oh, we lost one of our people. Yeah. And so the cops show up and they're like, Norman, did you kill this girl? And they search the house and she's not in there because she's in the ice bin. But then they come out.
And they don't search the one place you would hide a dead body.
Right. Well, then they come out and stand right next to it. And so So, like, he opens the thing and you see, like, her hand stuck out of there.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, God, is he going to notice? But then they also show, like, this giant pool of blood with, like, ice floating in it.
Yeah.
And, like, he reaches in, and because it's 100 and something degrees, he reaches in, he takes an ice, and he's like, oh, he's rubbing it. And then, like, he's talking to everybody because, like, the reporter's there, and Dwayne's there, and Norman's there, and like some of the partiers are there, so he's talking to everybody, and then he reaches in and grabs one of like the big bloody ice cubes and sticks it in his mouth. And like, first of all, A, you would taste the salty blood.
Yeah.
Like, B, even if you didn't, he's like sucking on this thing and there's like blood dripping down his chin. And Norman is the only one who notices. Yeah. Because Norman's like, oh gosh, what's gonna happen? And then like, that's just it. That's just the end of the scene. Like, it's a bad movie.
So
it's a
stupid.
bad movie.
Bloody Ice is huge in France.
I guess so. I do kind of appreciate the attempt to like give us Norman at his craziest. Full on having arguments with his mom. Full on like now it is totally missing the point of Psycho.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
Like that's this is what I would have expected from the second sequel of somebody who is just like, oh, everybody loved this movie. They need more mother and more mother and more Norman. Like, so Norman's got to be killing people. Let's just make him a slasher that talks to his crazy mom. For a third sequel, like I feel like since they gave us a good sequel, like for a third sequel, like I appreciate the attempt to be like, oh well, what if we just did something that completely misses the point?
Yeah.
Also putting too much thought into this.
Well, it's also totally deeper into the slasher craze.
Yeah.
So like we're just making a full on, and I guess that's the thing. Like these movies created the slasher, or whatever. They did that.
Yeah.
They've done their take on slashers. So like if we're gonna do a movie that's just a Norman Bates slasher, but it's bad. It doesn't like I'm not trying to justify. I'm not trying to justify the movie.
If you do want to put some,
because I did not like this movie,
perspective to it or whatever,
Right.
like if you dig out, the worst of the Nightmare franchise or the worst of the Friday franchise or whatever, like artistically, this is probably better than some of those. At very worst, it's right on par with some of those. But
is this worse than Friday 5? Is this worse than New Beginning?
I want to doubt it, but it's probably not much better either. But point being, if you just look at it as this slasher franchise, they all have these installments that are just like, what the hell?
You know what? This is definitely better than Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God.
So you were about to say something.
Well, I don't know if you read anything about like the development of this movie, but this is absolutely one of those situations where the studio meddled, and it's why it turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
Because in the original script, Dwayne, the twist was going to be that Dwayne came to the motel on purpose because he was obsessed with the Norman Bates story. And he wanted to be close to it, and he was going to end up being the killer, not Norman Bates.
Oh.
He was going to be the killer the whole time. He was going to be doing the mother thing.
I feel like that potentially could have been better.
It could.
But I don't know if the execution was all wrong in this movie anyway. So even with a better story, I don't know if it was going to.
So Universal stepped in and said, No, Norman Bates has to be the killer.
Right.
That's how this is. And then that's why things got changed. So
you remember every other movie where that's not really true?
I know,
Okay,
but that's totally a studio thing,
For
right?
sure, for sure.
That is
They did.
absolutely some guy on the top floor with his cigar reading that script going, What?
Yeah,
What?
because
Rewrite this.
cigar guy in a suit does not remember that.
Yeah.
He has no idea.
Man.
Who's Dwayne? Rewrite this.
Yeah.
They misspelled Norman Bates.
Just Vince.
It's always Vince.
Who's Dwayne, pal?
His friends call him Duke. Oh, okay.
All right. So that brings us to Psycho 4, the beginning. This movie actually did have some really good ideas, I thought. It's much better than 3.
I agree with that. I do feel it's much better than 3. Okay, so like this whole thing, we should go ahead and just say right out the gate, like they do the prequel thing kind of with this in a sense, because the whole thing is it's
might be my favorite way I've ever seen like the prequel done.
Yeah, so it's like a radio talk show, like,
Yep.
and they're like the topic of the night is about like the specific
Matricide.
Yeah, matricide. Okay, boys that kill their moms is the topic. So like Norman ends up calling into the show. He's got experience with that.
Mm-hmm.
So he calls into the show and he's kind of explaining his life without giving away who he is
Yep.
at first. And him explaining the story is how we get the doodaloo, 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 the flashbacks to Norman Bates growing up with Mother. Growing up. And we actually get to see it.
Also, the host is CCH Pounder. Yep. And I was totally like, man, what's she doing in this? Wait, 90. This is right. This is right where she belongs. This is totally, good job. Good. I'm glad she got this break.
So caught her on the way up, caught that kid from E.T. on the way down.
Man.
No. And caught that chick from Romeo and Juliet just sort of like well after the end had already come.
Yeah.
So this movie's hitting everybody coming everywhere.
Yeah. Man. So generally speaking, I am not a fan of getting the prequel story when they feel like they have to explain something we don't really need to see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, like Norman's backstory, what we got of it is all we really needed for Psycho. We didn't need to see it all play out.
Right.
You know? So when I'm watching this, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, I guess this is kind of fun, and they're totally doing things that he actually referenced in other movies, and, you know, at least they're kind of doing that, but, like, I don't need an origin story. Right. And I say that all the time. I find myself saying that for so many movies when we talk about them. We don't always need an origin story.
A lot of times we don't.
Also, aside from the murdering, Norman's head mother, way saner than his real mother. By this movie.
Dude,
yeah. See, and that's the thing. I do not like this movie better than 3.
No?
Really?
No. Not a lot worse, probably, because 3's pretty bad.
Okay.
But, like, 3 missed every mark it could miss. And the execution was pretty terrible, and it just seemed sort of, like, pointless. This one had a direct point, and I hated it.
Yeah.
Because of the overplayed origin stuff, because of the way they just try to shoehorn this extra story in, I didn't need any additional exposition on his mother. And like you said, it's just so over the top. It comes off as
cartoonish.
Yeah, exactly.
She was cartoonish.
Yeah.
She was very cartoonish.
I thought the Oedipal stuff was super creepy and weird. When they brought like the boyfriend in, who was just like the weird, like I don't even know what they were trying to do with that character. Yeah, because it's like he's the worst guy, but he's bad at being the worst guy, I guess, because it's like you expect it to be this abusive boyfriend character, and it kind of is that, except he's more of just a pud than abusive, you know? Like, he's just a total jackass.
Which is totally... But, so, okay, let me defend that, because that's totally the kind of guy that mother would find. You know, somebody who was kind of a pud, who was a little more... You know, he had all those, like, manly... stereotypical manly features. You know, he was kind of gruff, and he was, you know, kind of a sports guy. He did like the boxing thing with Norman at one point, but he also totally like his interactions with Norman were much more big brotherly than they were even like fatherly or stepdaddy. You know what I mean? Like, he picked on him and he kind of prodded him, and you know, even the one time where he was kind of like trying to toughen him up, he was then totally like, okay, now I'm just gonna hit you in the face for real.
Just punch it for real.
That's such a you know, that's such a like a bad big brother thing.
Yeah.
So like I thought that was an interesting dynamic to work in there that fit with the kind of guy the mother character.
Well, he was even doing that thing like in that one scene where he was just like, I'm nailing your mom, right? Yeah, cool, huh? You're like, what is going on with it? You know? And it was like, I felt like it was going so far out of its way to try to justify like the characterization of the other movies. Is like, no, I don't want it to make sense that Norman is the way he is. I want him to be a crazy person. I don't want him to be driven to this by being raised by cartoons. You know.
Well, I mean, him having been raised, like him being driven to that is totally part of that character. You know, like I don't think the point was ever that he just invented a crazy mother character.
Yeah, well, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but like,
it was over the top. Yeah, it was like, you know,
it was over the top.
Yeah,
like,
I found her to be very cartoony, especially like her voice. Like it just, I don't know, like it seemed like she was doing this really over the top fake accent thing when she was talking, and it was just like, This doesn't seem natural at all. Like, the delivery felt very forced.
Yep.
Yeah.
She really was. Norman, what are you doing?
Norman. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh man!
But it was really interesting. Like, I don't know. I did kind of enjoy the back and forth scenes, like with him actually like talking to the radio host or whatever. And like, in this movie, by this point, he's married now because like
He's out of the mental ward for the second time. He's
out again, and this time he fell in love with like one of the nurses or whatever and married her. Yeah. So he's like married to one of the nurses from.
Who she was also totally crazy, which that part's fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But that was almost like I almost felt like a Harley Quinn type vibe on that, where she just totally. Like completely just falls head over heels for this patient and forgets any level of sanity she had.
Yeah. Well, that would explain that. I just remember really questioning her. At the end there, I was just like, what's happening?
Yeah. But they do, like, the frame story is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think it held up through the whole movie. Like, the idea that he's calling into this radio station and then recounting his past is an idea that it feels worth exploring, but then when I actually see it explored, it just starts to annoy me after a while.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got this big thing with that doctor going, I think this might be Norman Bates.
Yeah.
Let's keep him talking and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then at one point it's just like, and then the world is going to have enough of Norman Bates, and just like says it out loud, and then just keeps on going I think they do the close up on CCH Pounder with the realization, but even that was just like a lame, it's like they tried to manufacture a moment without actually doing anything to make that moment land, and then it just continues to move on without anything. I'm like, even the payoffs are weak.
I also had to laugh because they do that thing where, like, in between calls or whatever, they go in and they're talking with the producer, who is John Landis, and they're like, the doctor's like, this is Norman Bates. We need to keep him talking or whatever. We need to find out what's going on. And CCH Pounder, who's the radio host, is like, yeah, I'll see if I can get him to tell me who he's going to kill my own way. And the producer's like, well, her own way means she's just going to ask him straight out. And the doctor's like, no. We can't do that. And then they go back in there, and the doctor's like, let me talk to him. And the doctor's like Norman gets back on the phone. The doctor immediately goes, so Norman, you said you're going to kill again. Who are you going to kill this time? and then CCH Founder's like, Doc, no, we can't. No, we got to be Norman. You don't have to answer that, but tell me who you like. She immediately then does the exact. But tell me who you're going to kill. It's like, what are you guys doing? Who wrote this? Yeah. Excuse me. Who didn't write this scene?
Yeah. Was this the movie where they undid the spool thing, or did they do that?
That was in
3.
That was in 3.
Okay. Because it was the reporter, wasn't it?
No, it was. Was it the reporter? I think it was. Oh man, Meg Tilly. I feel like it was Meg Tilly. It was one of them.
Well, no, that was
right. It might be.
Meg Tilly was in 2.
So it would have been in 3.
No, yeah. Well, you're right. It was the reporter.
Okay.
Because he was getting ready to kill the reporter, and that's when she was doing, Emma Spool is not really your mother.
Yeah.
She was your mother's sister. She couldn't have a baby, and she got jealous, and she tried to take the baby.
Yeah.
She tried to kidnap you when you were, and it's like, guys, stop.
Yeah.
It's like they just kept going through scenarios. Yeah. Like, guys, stop. This is bad. This is, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
You're doing this wrong. Yeah. In that you're doing it.
You're failing at movie.
Yeah.
So I guess we should get to
4.
Ultimately with 4. Then what we find out is that Norman's wife is pregnant, and he apparently told her when they got married that he never wanted her to get pregnant. He didn't want the possibility that his kid will grow up and be just like him and be a murderer and this and that, and that he needed to stop it. So now that she went and got herself pregnant, well, he's just going to have to kill her.
Yeah, and she totally tricked him into...
Yeah!
Also, super...
she totally just tricked him into having a kid. Yeah.
I didn't tell you I stopped taking my birth control.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's over the line. Over the line. That's... Maybe Norman's right here.
Wow. This episode's taking a dark turn.
I'm joking, obviously.
Yeah. So he has her.
I was just cheering on Ed Gein, and I'm appalled.
So he has her meet him at home, and he's gonna kill her at home.
Yeah.
But then she shoes up and she talks him out of killing her. Like,
man, that whole scene
completely too.
So that's the scene too that I was like, because I was really questioning her. Well, first of all, like when he's just like on the phone with her and he's just like, if you really love me, you'll meet me at my mom's house.
Yeah,
I'm going to my mom's house right now, and she's all like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And he's just like, "Going to my mom's house. Meet me there if you love me.
Bring
like
me my cake."
Bring my cake. That whole scene was so weird, and like his delivery was way off, and it was just not. It was not acted well.
No.
And then we get to that confrontation where they're like, he's gonna kill her, and the whole time I'm watching it, and she's like talks him out of it and talks him down, and everything's good, and I'm just like, you don't just like move on from this, right? Like. Like, you don't just go home and go to bed together that night and everything's cool? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because he had the knife. He was like moments from stabbing her to death. Yeah. And she's just like, you don't have to do it, Norman. We can raise this baby. And he's like, I guess you're right.
Like, I guess you're right.
Then he decides he's going to burn that house
when
down.
You're crazy enough to fall in love with Norman Bates and trick him into...
it's totally fair.
Then you're crazy enough to... go back home with him after he...
I was going to say, you making the Harley Quinn reference made that click a little bit more for me, but in the moment, I was just like, what the actual hell? Like, seriously. Like, this is... that. You don't just get to move on from this and, like, have your kid and be cool, right? Like, you're totally going to go home and call the cops on your husband, right? He tried to murder you.
Yeah. No, he thought about murdering her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He just thought really hard about it.
So then Norman burns down the house.
Murders mother.
Gets trapped inside. Mm-hmm. Does he...
Like, lights... Well, like, he's like... Well, she gets lit on fire.
Who gets lit on fire?
Doesn't mother? Or is that in a different
That's
movie?
in the 3? In the third one.
Okay.
So we totally didn't talk about that. The third one, he stabs the mummy to death.
Yeah.
Because the third one, and another bad
Does it get lit on fire too?
Maybe.
I remember him stabbing it in 3, and I remember it getting lit on fire. I thought it getting lit on fire was in 4.
So he hallucinates a lot when he sets the house on fire and gets trapped inside. He starts hallucinating.
Yeah,
and there's that because there's like the mother skeleton and that bursts into flame. But that wasn't really there.
Yeah,
there's like a bunch of hallucinations while he's gonna burn to death in this building.
Yeah,
in the Bates house.
Yeah. It's possible the smoke will get him before the fire does.
That's fine. But then he just escapes out the side instead. Like a scientific
I'm free.
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah. He's like, oh no, like he's running around the house and stuff's falling and blocking his path. Then he like falls down into the basement. But then he just opens like the storm cellar doors and just walks out.
And escapes and reunites with his wife, and then presumably the radio station never calls the police and sends a bunch of cops after him because he definitely did just on the radio admit to who he was and that he was about to kill someone.
You also super can't just burn down a house even if you own it.
That's what I was making that same comment when I was watching. I was like, cool, so they just put out the fire and they're just leaving? They're just like all right, sorry about your house, Norman, but we put it out. We're going to go now.
Yeah. I think that depends on the zoning laws. You just can't collect the insurance.
Maybe so. Okay. That's fair. Maybe so.
I was like, you can't just burn your house down and that's okay.
Always depends on which state you're in.
Okay. Also, I'm pretty sure if you've murdered a whole bunch of people, then like they look at that, like
he's reformed again, man.
Okay, fair enough.
Just leave him alone. Let him burn down his house.
He also admitted to killing a bunch of people on that radio show that they probably didn't know about.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. In the flashbacks, we got to see like his first 2 kills, which I think he's referenced in the other movies. Like the first 2, like because there's like
all of that felt super made up to me. Maybe he referenced them, but
he definitely referenced murdering his mother and her boyfriend. Yeah. I don't think he ever referenced murdering
like because the first one kept
some
coming
random
back alive.
cheerleader chick.
Remember the first one? The first
I was about to say, like, also why was like the head cheerleader so infatuated with the weird guy?
Yeah,
that's a thing, right?
You know, I don't. Not in high school.
They didn't have Plainview obviously didn't have a jock or a Danny Zuko.
They had a football team, as we found out in 3, so they had to have one.
70 years later.
A Danny Zuko.
The Danny Zuko.
Fantastic.
I love it. Oh boy, this movie. Yeah, well, that's the end of the Psychos.
So I have 2 things. One thing we glossed over, and then I have a thought for the
Force
franchise. I totally. So, 1 and 2, Psycho and Psycho 2. Anthony Perkins is so good. So good.
Yeah.
And then in 3, all of a sudden, I don't like he's doing this bad William Shatner impersonation because everything he says is broken up into weird emphasis, right?
Yeah.
And like I called that out watching it.
Totally did, yeah.
But and then he did that all the way through the 4th one too. But I do have to say, I found like some interviews with Anthony Perkins, and in the interviews he totally did that. Like
that's just how he talks.
That's just
that's
how
his
he
cadence.
talks.
Yeah.
I would say
I was like, did he have a stroke between one?
William
Shatner.
William Shatner himself is such a glitch in the Matrix that I don't. If you're trying to do a William Shatner impression, I don't think you can do a bad one.
well, fair.
However, I know what you mean, and yes, I agree.
So my other thought, the thing I want to say about this franchise, this series of 4, I really love the story told through these 4 movies. Like they're not good movies. I wonder if I would be more forgiving to these movies if the first one wasn't Psycho. But like I really want to like the way they do, because Psycho, the story in Psycho and the way it flows into the story in the second one, where like he gets cured, but they remake him crazy, and then he kind of resets things, and then there's this stretch of time where he's just full on lost in his crazy, like he fell off the bandwagon. That's part of getting cured, right? You fall off the bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
So he falls off the bandwagon, he spills some time, just and then to come back with the 4th one where he's looking back at the beginning, but he's also like closing his chapter, closing his story and burning down and abandoning like he's looking at the past, and that movie ends with him burning down the past. And like I feel like this is a really good series story, like the way it's encapsulated, the way it's bookended. I feel like it deserves such better movies that actually work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like even the Halloweens were just like random sequel. The Fridays, random sequel. These disregarding the caliber of the movie, these stories feel like they were planned to tell a complete story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like I want to like I want to like 3 and 4 more than I do because I like looking at the big picture. I like that flow.
You can like that outline without liking the individual parts of it,
right? Which I do.
Yeah,
but like I also
hesitate to believe anything in 4 was planned with a grander view in mind. but it doesn't have to be planned for it to work that way either.
Also, I don't think. Yeah, then that's my thing. I don't think anybody made 4 going. I think they just made like, people are dying to see what really happened.
This is the justice that Hitchcock's vision deserves.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So speaking of the justice
that
Hitchcock's vision deserves.
Go on.
Somebody, a man, had the bravery, the vision to try and bring that justice and bring that Hitchcock vision back to life.
You're talking about the Good Will Hunting guy, right?
Not Gus Van Sant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Busy, Ben.
Busy. Man, John. So. Did you watch the remake?
I took the moral high ground on this one.
Okay.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
I watched the remake.
I did too.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the remake before, but I couldn't remember. You remember last week how you said that you just watched the first one, but like, hey, just what if every scene was bad? Yeah. John, that is just not accurate. The problems with that movie are so far beyond. So far beyond. Nothing in that movie worked. Everything in that movie was bad and wrong. Like,
And that's always been my full understanding. And it's like, again, it's one of the, like, I don't want to know the answer to this question. I just wonder how a shot-for-shot remake of something so good can turn out so bad. But that is the universal impression. So
I'm about to tell you, because there's just so many things I want to say about this movie, and I'm not going to suck up a ton of time. I have a few specific problems that I need to point out. Because, like, first of all, every single person in this movie was doing something different. And I think Gus Van Sant was the only one who knew that they were trying to do a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, because Viggo Mortensen is doing this weirdly, off-puttingly, overly genuine cowboy character for no reason at all.
Totally.
Like, that doesn't fit in this movie at all. That has
Sam Loomis.
He's Sam Loomis.
Yeah.
And he like, you could almost he is so weirdly sincere. You could almost convince me that somebody told him he was playing the Norman Bates character.
yeah.
You know, he's just so, like, almost childlike, and he wears a stupid cowboy hat for no, like, I don't know if he's supposed to be from, I mean, Sam Loomis was not from Texas. I know there's cowboys in Arizona, but, like, I don't think, it was bad. It was so bad. Anne Heche, she wasn't bad. You know, I almost feel like she was too good of an actress. Her and, who's the other lady in that?
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore. Her and Julianne Moore almost felt like they were too good for this, for their roles, because they wanted to, like, this movie only would have worked if because you have to do, like, an impersonation, right? And they were both too good to do impersonations of their characters. They were both trying to bring, like, acting and pathos to the characters, and not that the original actresses didn't do that, but they just fit in their movie. Yeah. And these two women were acting too well to fit in this movie.
Trying to shoehorn themselves into something.
Yes. The one thing that did work, William H. Macy plays Arbogast, and he fit perfect into this movie. I
can see that.
Yeah, he just did, like, he was right for the role. It was super. He was the only one too that I felt like, even though everybody else was doing the exact same dialogue, he was the only one that I started having fun with the dialogue. Somebody else doing that dialogue.
So, and the funny thing about him too, I don't know if you've looked anything else up about this, but he's gone on to do interviews about this movie, talking about how when he like begged to do any movie with this director,
Gus Van Sant.
He really wanted to work with this director. And when they all basically got there to film this movie, they had no idea that he just wanted to do a shot-for-shot remake of the original. They were all expecting his own twist on Psycho, and that's what they wanted to do. To the extent where William H. Macy tried to convince him to change some of the dialogue and some of the scenes, specifically the falling down the stairs scene, because William H. Macy hates the way it looks, because they shot it exactly the same as Alfred Hitchcock did. So it's the same real cheesy looking fall down the stairs, and he specifically did not like that scene, and apparently had arguments trying to get him to change direction on this movie, and he would not do it. Yeah. So he's gone on to say that this movie is totally misguided and everything. Yeah.
And I believe that one. Like, you can, I didn't read anything like that. You can just see that in the making of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who played the creepy cowboy at the beginning?
Totally somebody we know. I have it here. Hold on. Sorry.
He still said the line too, which was great. It's warm as fresh milk outside. It's my favorite.
Warm as fresh milk.
I wonder if when William H. Macy's making this complaint, if he's doing it about that one specific scene, like that seems like too late.
Chad Everett.
Chad Everett.
Right? Or was it
this guy?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We don't know his name.
Know the face. Yeah. I mean, okay, so obviously we have to talk about Vince Vaughn.
Dude, the shining star of awful in this movie. So bad. I don't know how he is still a thing after making that movie, because this was like one of his earliest things.
Yeah,
right?
this was, I mean, like post Swingers,
Yeah,
but pre a lot of his big stuff.
I don't know how. I'm glad
when
he
did this come out?
I
Like
like Wedding Singer.
97 or
90?
No, it was, well, I mean, 90s when Psycho 4 came out.
Yeah, 98.
Okay.
98. He is so bad.
So bad. Just totally miscast for this character. Completely miscast for this character.
The easy thing to say is that Anthony Perkins made Norman Bates work because he was so good at the subtlety of it.
Yes.
Norman Bates is such a subtle character.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And nothing about, like, there's not a subtle bone in Vince Vaughn's body.
Nope.
No, not even kind of. I was reading some stuff, afterwards, and I think one of the most real comments that I read about Vince Vaughn's version of this character was that, when you're watching the original one, especially like when you're thinking of the audience watching the original Psycho in 1960, it was a complete shock that somebody who looked and acted like Anthony Perkins could end up being somebody that could be a murderer.
Right.
And that's like the beauty of that character. Because even watching it now, we talked about the subtleties and just the way he plays that character.
Yeah.
And it's a genuine surprise, especially to that audience back then, that somebody who looked like that could be a murderer.
Yeah.
When you look at Vince Vaughn, he looks like somebody who could be a murderer. I mean, there's just no subtleties about him. There's no there's nothing about him that gets rid of that doubt. Like, oh, there's no way this guy could kill somebody, because from the minute he walks on screen, his character looks like somebody that could be the killer. You know what I mean? He just it's just the way he carries himself, and the way, everything about him is just so anti-Anthony Perkins, it's ridiculous.
Yep. So I also don't want to breeze over the fact that Vince Vaughn is just bad in this movie. Okay, it's not just a styles clash. He is bad in this movie. He keeps doing those lines, and Anthony Perkins would have those lines where he'd be saying something that's a little, and then he'd have that manufactured laugh where like if you're watching with a critical eye, you're like, that's not how a normal person laughs. Right. Except that Vince Vaughn would stick that laugh, where he'd say something. it was just bad.
He did it a lot.
When we first meet him, he flip flops and does all the wrong things. Like when we first meet him, he's doing like the childlike, this kid's kind of stuck in like a childish mindset. Yeah. And he way overplays that. It's like Vince Vaughn doing an impersonation of a 7-year-old. It's not a subtle, oh, this guy's kind of innocent. It's, why is this guy acting like an 8-year-old? Yeah. What's going on here? But then like halfway through the movie, he switches to like this creepy, effeminate, like predatory gay man. Like it's just, it's a completely different take on Norman Bates, which once again is like missing the point of Norman Bates. Like the point of Norman Bates is he looks normal until he murdered. He's not a gay cross-dresser that murders people. Yeah, he is a normal dude.
Two different people.
Right,
he's two different people. He's the mother and Norman Bates. Yeah, I didn't like some of the, like we keep talking about this as a shot-for-shot remake, but we should bring up the point, like it is set in the 90s. It's like set in 98. So like they modernized it a little bit because of that. And most of the dialogue is exactly the same as the original movie. They did add a few little things here and there that were a little more risque, or things that couldn't be said in the original movie.
It's also $400,000.
$400,000 instead of $40,000.
Okay. That's probably good.
Okay, so like when we're talking about just like the weird little things that they added for whatever reason, like I was really put off by the scene where he looked through the peephole to see her getting in the shower and then just started masturbating.
Well, that's again, absolutely.
I was like, why was this necessary?
That made me want to fight Gus Van Sant.
Yeah, like that was just an unnecessary thing to add to this character.
Yeah. And it completely misses the point of the character.
Yeah, yeah.
Like once again, because that's what happened. So like, Norman Bates does not watch through the peephole, masturbate, and then go to murder her to get his sexual thrill. Right. Like he looks through the peephole and has an impure thought, and then the mother character takes over
Yeah.
And that's why he watches for half a second and then leaves immediately. You know what I mean? In the original one.
Right.
He's not sitting there getting his thrill and thinking about, having these urges comes up. He sits there, has that one impure thought, and then the mother character takes over and it's time to murder the girl who's trying to you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Like
it stops him from getting to that point.
Right,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I just seriously, that was the moment. Like I was already like, this whole thing feels pointless. But like that moment took me so far out of it that I was just over it at that point.
Well,
I was like,
how can you be a Hollywood guy who, I mean, apparently fancies yourself as being inspired by Alfred Hitchcock and this movie so bad that you want to go and just redo it?
Yeah.
In it, like everything that as close to the same as you can, when clearly you misunderstand it that deeply.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
The point it lost me was on the drive when Anne Heche is driving at night and they do that close-up shot on her face and like the Psycho music is playing.
Yep.
And for whatever reason in this movie the music did not connect with, and I couldn't tell you the difference. I could watch them side by side and probably still not tell you what the difference was. But Psycho, the music connected, and it felt the 60s, Hitchcock Psycho, the music connected. It felt like a part of the movie. It felt like it was driving the movie. In the Gus Van Sant version, it felt like overlaid. You know what I mean? It's like here's this scene and the Psycho music laid over it. It did not. Something about it was just disconnected.
Totally.
And I was like, I got to that scene and I was like, this is. I think that's when I messaged you guys and I was like, man, nothing about this movie works.
Yeah. Nothing about it.
Nothing about this movie.
I hated his mother look.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Like, why did we have to change it? Like he's wearing like this long, luscious blonde wig now, and like I don't know, it just looked terrible. It didn't look like
the
way you would expect him to look as Mother. They changed the freaking house.
Yeah.
Like, and then what makes me even more mad about that is when I was reading about it, they built that new house in front of the old house set. So like you built this worse looking house to be the new house for Psycho that just looks like a normal house. It doesn't have like that cool creepy, like if you've got the original set right there, why in the world wouldn't you just
especially
use
if you're trying to make a shot for shot
remake? What was the point of making a new ugly house that house is one of the characters of Psycho? How do you do that? I was so mad.
You just don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get it. He didn't get it. Absolutely. This movie is not worth your time. It just isn't. It really isn't. I was so upset at the end of it.
It was bad.
Upset.
I checked out on it so hard. Like I watched it all the way through to the end.
Me too.
I checked out on it so hard. I don't really I barely noticed that the house was different. I was so put off by. I couldn't figure out what like.
The new house looked dumb too.
Viggo Mortensen was so bad.
He was so bad.
I like Viggo Mortensen. I can't think of anything where I would be like, "Gosh, he was terrible in this."
Yeah.
He was bad in this movie. It wasn't just the character. Again, it wasn't just this character was off. Like he was bad.
Yeah,
he was bad.
Well, I mean, they probably figured out early enough in. Like you said, they all got to the set. We're going to do this exciting thing, and then they find out that they're just doing this thing that doesn't make that much sense, and they probably all checked out the same time they did.
You're probably right. I'm sure they all probably did once they realized what was going on.
Yeah.
They probably all got real excited when they were being cast for this update of Psycho, and then it wasn't an update.
Now, did they still do
it was a misguided
Did they still do the 10-minute explanation at the end?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Word for word. Mm-hmm. It's who gave it? It was Robert Forster.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No.
Well,
not nice.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know if he does serious movies or whatever. My most recent memory of him is Community.
Oh,
when he was doing Chevy Chase and Abed's Happy Place.
Yeah.
So he came in to deliver the payoff of Psycho, and I was like, of course. Well, why isn't it just Chevy Chase? This is ridiculous.
Wait, in the
wasn't
that
was
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard in Community.
In Community,
Yeah, I could totally see how you can
feel like that's
confuse
the
them,
same person.
they probably are. They're the same person. Man, yeah, this was bad. Anyway. The first movie is so good. Everybody should just go watch the first Psycho movie. Put it on your list for Halloween this year. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
And then wait like a year and then watch Psycho 2. Maybe that's the trick.
Maybe that is the trick. I had a lot of fun with Psycho 2.
I like Psycho 2.
You know what? And I will say at the end of the day, I had a lot of fun doing this entire marathon. I did like watching all of these, even though I didn't really care for a lot of the story elements. These were still fun to watch. So I will give them that. Give them that.
That's how most of these franchises are. A lot of them are many bad movies, but they're always a good time.
I think that's the thing that is different about horror movies than most other genres.
Totally.
Because like the worse they get, the better
sometimes
they are.
The more fun they are to watch. Yeah, I get that.
It's the ones in the middle that are the drags.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are really good, and the ones that are really bad are really fun.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there's plenty of horror movies that aren't worth watching, but almost, and that's almost the
you
point.
You can find 1 million of them on Prime right now.
There's plenty. You can just slash away, and if some people are going to get killed, and as long as there's good kills, I'm going to watch this movie. It doesn't need good acting. It doesn't need,
Totally.
All right, guys. Well, we do have a bit of a format to stick to.
Okay.
So we do have to go through what was your favorite character other than Norman? Norman doesn't count.
Oh.
Did you have a favorite
that's
character?
Tough.
Probably Meg Tilly.
I was going to say her too. I did like her character. Gosh, I feel like she's the most standout out of everybody throughout all these movies, aside from Norman.
Well, and she's the one that she was fleshed out. She had an interesting story.
Yes.
She had an interesting ending, even to her story.
Mother's my favorite character.
I mean, I got to go back to Janet Leigh.
Yeah,
I love the first.
Not Anne Heche?
Not Anne Heche.
Oh, okay.
Well, I love the first 40 minutes of Psycho. The first 40 minutes is like this film noir,
totally.
Noir is
totally.
like if I have a favorite other than horror, it's probably noir. I love noir movies,
sure,
and especially black and white. It's like the first half of that movie, just right in my wheelhouse. I'm all in for that, and then the second half is also I'm all in. But so Janet Leigh would probably be mine.
Cool.
What character were you most looking forward to dying?
Duke,
whether they did or not.
Duke was set up as a D-bag right from the beginning, and even when we were watching that and that whole car scene, we were like, "Well, can't wait for this guy to die."
Yeah,
you can tell that's what they're setting him up for.
Yeah, I'd put Dennis Franz right up there also.
Yeah,
probably Duke more.
Totally.
But if we need an honorable mention, he's right there.
Man, yeah, I don't know if there's a person I want to see die more than Duke.
Vince Vaughn.
I was gonna say Vince Vaughn
counts. You said outside of Norman, but inside of I will still give you that one.
Just Vince Vaughn. Not even Norman Bates. Vince Vaughn.
Would I give up Wedding Crashers to not have the 98 Psycho?
You can just not watch the 98 Psycho.
Yeah, I like Wedding Crashers.
Man, Chet.
Yeah.
Chet. I really wish Chet had died more spectacularly. Because he just kind of gets poisoned.
Yeah. He kind of did that thing where he kept coming back too, though.
Yeah.
I'm dead. I'm back. I'm dead again. I'm back. Just kept coming back and trying to fight.
Chet's never died.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what we came for.
All right.
Why we're here. Why we do the freak easy. Favorite kill.
It's a no-brainer, right?
I mean, it's totally Lila in part 2.
It's got to be.
That that was definitely my favorite.
Like, that's my favorite kill amongst, like, several franchises, probably.
I mean, the original shower scene has to be up there because it's iconic.
Yeah.
But my favorite one to watch was absolutely Lila part 2.
Yeah, I rewound that one a couple of times.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, like, I did not just see that. Oh, he did.
I did.
Oh, he did it again.
He did it for real.
So I actually have to go with Mrs. Spool at the end of part 2.
It's also great.
With the
also
shovel.
great.
The shovel.
Because it inspired you?
Yeah, you know, it's got a lot of nostalgic quality to it.
Yeah.
No.
Your mom's listening to this right now going, I knew it.
I knew it.
No, you know, it actually, honestly, it totally, part of what I love about it is it's one that I don't really know how they do. Because that old lady is just sitting at that table, and he picks up that giant, his giant shovel, kitchen shovel.
Just overhand swings that thing and
just
bangs
pounds
it.
Like, there's not a cut to it. There's not a, you know what I mean? Like it's one that's kind of, it sucks me in, and I'm like, I don't know how they did that. I don't know what the magic trick is. I mean, maybe... Yeah. He really just murdered that poor actress.
he just hit that lady over there with a shovel.
I mean, she's old. You know, maybe
she knew what she was signing.
Is there like a premium for? You know,
you have a soft spot in that because you've hit people with shovels on film before.
I mean,
you're just trying to figure out the. It
was a snow shovel.
The same thing. You're trying to figure out the style to it. Any parts you can borrow and add to your repertoire.
Guys, that's Psycho.
That was awesome. I had a lot of fun. I love that movie.
If you haven't seen Psycho, go watch it. If you haven't seen Psycho in a long time, go watch it. Mm-hmm. I'm highly gonna recommend Psycho 2. I think that's a good part of the canon, a good sequel. Man, I don't know that I don't think it's one of the more solid horror sequels at number 2.
Sure.
You know, like some of the ones with longer franchise, you know, there's Halloweens that I like better. They're all down the line. Mm-hmm.
They're not Halloween 2?
No, I would say the same thing with the Fridays. There's Fridays that I like. There's Fridays. Nah, you know what?
Yeah, I like Psycho 2. I like Psycho 2 fine, but Psycho 2 ain't no Jason X.
Jason X. Yeah.
That's fair. But man, my point was going to be like, you know what? That's not a fair comparison because Friday the 13th is far from, like, the first one is far from my favorite movie in that franchise anyway.
Yeah.
So
fair.
So that's a weird franchise to compare. 3 and 4, you can take them or leave them.
Totally.
If you're a completionist, see them. If you've got some adult beverages and some friends coming over, they might be worth turning on.
Yeah,
especially 3. Yeah. I think especially 3. Like three's a good guys' night.
It's bananas.
I didn't like 3 or 4 at all, but I wouldn't tell anybody to avoid them like the plague by any means. You know, they're still better than a lot.
They're not the remake
of D-rate horror movies.
Just don't watch the remake. We took that bullet for you.
Yeah, you don't need to watch that one. There's nothing redeeming about it.
And tweet these guys a thank you for doing that.
Awesome.
Man.
Well, what's next? What's on our agenda?
Next week, the Geek icon guy. Like I feel like we're missing something until we do this one.
Ooh, what is it?
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. Oh snap!
My heart just fluttered.
I'm excited.
Just doing the movies.
Okay. It's not Ash versus.
I mean, if you got, I mean, we can. I've
seen a little bit of Ash versus, but yeah, I would agree. Let's just do the movies first.
I mean, I'm sure we can talk about it a little bit. I have one thing to say about it. So, like, if you guys have seen it, or if you want to watch some.
I watched part of the first season. I never did finish it, but I got it's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in, man. I'm excited.
But we're doing the remake for that one.
Yeah, I'll do the remake for that one.
We are definitely doing the remake for that one.
Sweet.
Have you seen that yet?
I haven't. This is going to be my first time seeing that one.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Jaren's been talking about it a lot, so I'm excited.
I'm not even worried about building it up.
Yeah?
I'm not even worried. I'm not worried that I'm going to oversell you on this and you're going to be like, oh, I expected more.
We definitely got to get together to watch that.
For sure.
Cool.
For sure.
Cool.
And guys, hopefully you will get together with us next week. Mm-hmm. Go watch The Evil Dead so you can follow along as we discuss them next week. That's been the Freak Easy. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you're watching us on the YouTubes.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure to rate us and review us if you're listening to the podcast. You can find the audio version for the Freak Easy and the Geek Easy on all your favorite podcasting apps, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's YouTube Music,
YouTube Music, or Google Podcasts,
or Google Podcasts. That's what it is.
That's what
Google
it is
Podcasts.
for the podcast. Yeah,
Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. If any of those are still around, you can
Amazon Music has podcasts now. Are we on that?
Yeah, we're on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. We're on both of those.
Oh, I said Amazon.
Oh, Amazon.
Amazon
I
Music
submitted us for I submitted us for Amazon, and I submitted us for what's the devices like Echoes and stuff, so that you can say play the Geek Easy podcast, and it'll actually know what it's.
So you can just randomly say to your robot overlords out loud our show name, and it'll just start playing.
Should play it. Yeah.
Shortly
so
before,
I submitted it for that too.
Shortly before the machines rise.
Yeah, that's right.
Kill us all.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we're gonna do a Judgment Daisy.
Judgment Daisy.
We can just do the
Terminator.
We can just do the Terminator. We can just do the Terminators on the Freak Easy.
I just love how we keep coming up with franchises that we're like, let's do these franchises. We got like a pile of them that we want to do.
For sure.
I love it.
Guys, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. John, any final words? Phantom Dan, any last words?
It's as warm as fresh milk out here.
The Geek Easy podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy podcast.